side by side is a core value of our club, and our fans are a massive part of that.
Hello and welcome back to the Side by Side Footy Show. After the Pies have absolutely demolished, dismantled, destroyed the Port Adelaide Power at the MCG, mate, I'll tell you this. I was at the game, and my God, that was just one amazing game to have attended. Usually I don't enjoy the big wins, the big margin wins much, but this was one of the best games I've ever attended. Just in terms of enjoying yourself and, the football that we played, the pressure that we applied, everything from top to bottom compared to last week was just night and day, heaven and hell, like just completely a complete shift from where we were last week. And we really got to work during the week, and it really told. You could really see how much the players put the heart and soul into what they did on Saturday night, and it was just tremendous to watch. And I don't know how it looked on TV. I did watch a bit of a replay, but being at the game, it was such a great pressure game. Like, you just kept seeing the players running the whole time. It was non-stop. They're running for each other. They're running in sync. There's a plan. There's a method. There's a style of play. And everything just looked so much better than it did last week. It's easy to say, Port just weren't good enough. It is very easy to say that. Like, I don't think Port looked as bad as a West Coast this week or Fremantle this week. But just in terms of the pressure they were under, and obviously Port play the corridor game, right? We just killed that for them, and then from there, they just had no idea where to go. They'd take the extra second with the ball, and then someone would be right there ready to tackle them down. Just a superb game, probably our best pressure game I've seen us play since 2023, and I can't even remember any game in 2023 that outdid that kind of pressure game. I mean, just the pressure acts, the numbers, the tackles, you look at all the stats, just incredible. And watching it in person was just amazing, honestly. It was such a grand game to be at. There's so much I could say about that game, and a lot has been said already, I'm sure, by others, but I just really, really enjoyed that game, and I think that is the blueprint. That is the blueprint of what we can offer. We did not look too slow. We did not look like we were an old team. We looked like a team in sync. Everyone was playing for each other. The changes that McRae made during the week with bringing in Sullivan, and obviously Houston came in, which was a massive, massive point of difference for us. But just added a bit more speed in that team. Obviously Pendle's a sub as well. The changes were right. It all worked out very wonderfully, and it was a great night. I was nervous before the game, thinking, it might be a close game and we'd just win it. But in the end, we just absolutely didn't give them a sniff, other than the second quarter where I think maybe they got back into it a little bit. But that third quarter, we just went ham on them, and so many great performances, so many players to talk about. So let's do it. Let's get right into the player ratings. All right, into the player ratings we go. Now, look, a 7 for me is pretty much a baseline score in terms of what's expected of you. You performed as you were expected. Maybe nothing too exceptional, but just the right. That's where you should be at, right? A 7 and above, obviously, it's just going to be a happy performance for me. So starting off, Isaac Quaynor, I thought he had a very good game. I thought he backed up what he did last week and looked as sharp as he did last week. And obviously bringing in Houston and having Josh Dacos in that back line now just allows a bit more smalls, that help him out in terms of him allowing him to focus on, just manning up his man, doing well. Wouldn't expect much from him in terms of a rebound defender. So just a shutdown, small, and he did his job. I'll give him a 7. Wasn't too over the top, but I think he did exactly what we wanted of him, and that's what matters. So a 7 for Quaynor. Moving on, I think Moore had a very solid game, and I think he's going to slowly start to build every week into the player that he was in 2023. I'm going to give him a 7.5. I don't think he was an 8, but I thought he did just that little bit extra than what we expect. Some good pressure acts. Got good spoils, good marks, intercept marks, did what he had to do, and I thought he was really, really good. But a 7.5 for Darcy. Really looking forward to how he progresses on in the season. Maynard is one of the ones. I mean, he scored 2 goals, but that wasn't it. Like, it's just his composure and his defending, and he covered the ground really well, pushed up at the right moments, did everything that you'd want from Maynard, and he's always been a great performer. You know, even in games where we don't quite play well, he's always just such a great football player and such a great performer, a professional. I'm going to give Maynard an 8.5. I thought it was really, really good. You know, the 2 goals are probably what got him. I would have probably had him at 8, but I think the 2 goals were really just superb goals, just out of nowhere, back to back as well. So an 8.5 for Maynard. Really, really happy with his game. All right, next up, we've got the landing. Houston, we have a landing, and it is Dan the man. He was incredible. I mean, there's so many parts of his game that we saw him at Port Adelaide. We knew what he's capable of, but he just had an incredible performance. Just changed the team in terms of how we were able to move the ball. You know, great intercept. He had like 10 intercept possessions. He had a good chunk of tackles as well. Possessions-wise, I remember at the start of the game, he had 2 or 3 entries inside 50s that led to goals. Just thought he was superb, man. All across the field, he oozes class, and he slows down time when he's on the ball, and he's just always able to pick out the best options. Nothing less. 9.5 for Houston. I don't like to give out 10s that often, but a 9.5. I mean, if that is a way to announce yourself at your new club against your old club in your first game, mate, just terrific stuff. 9.5 for Houston. Really, really looking forward to what it brings to us for the whole year. And obviously, he looked really up for it. And just the crowd got behind him. There was a energy whenever he had the ball that rivals the likes of Dacos or Maynard or Pendles or Sidey. Like, we got behind him, and the crowd got behind him, and absolutely loved what he offered us. 9.5 for Houston. Next up, we've got Jeremy Howe. Now, look, for me, Howe, I feel like he did what he had to do that game. I thought Howe's an incredible intercept mark. He reads the play behind the ball so well. Probably goes under the radar in terms of his ability to really just position himself in the right spots and do what he had to do. But obviously got subbed off for the last quarter, for the last quarter and a bit. Manage was a really good idea. Obviously had the knee issues during the week. So I'll give him a 7. I thought he did what he had to do that game. I thought if he played the full 4 quarters, I might have given him the same as Moore, 7.5. But given that he only played, let's say, 2.5, nearly 3 quarters, I'll give him a 7. Just did what he expected of him, and he's such a great player, so underrated for me in that back line. An essential part of what we need to do in that back line to get us going, and made it a lot easier for the likes of Reeve, who we'll get into later. But yeah, 7 for Jeremy Howe. Could be a 7.5, but I'll stick with a 7 on this one. Next up, Josh Dacos. Now, I thought Josh had a pretty solid game. I thought last week he was a little bit better, but that's only because he was playing the Houston role in terms of going forward. But I thought this week his defensive effort was incredible. I think there was a lot of talk about how he pressed up last week and kind of just let his man roll off. He did not do that this week. He absolutely stuck to his man. He pulled off when he needed to. Did really well with the ball. I think he rotated on the wing a couple of times here and there, but overall, a great game, a much more solid game than I thought he had last week, just in terms of defensive effort. Good tackling pressure, good pressure acts as well. So really, really happy with his game, and I thought he's improving. And we'll see that as the season goes on. He just started playing at halfback, so as the year goes on, he'll get better and better. But there were patches of the game where he was quiet on the ball, just because he was doing his role. He was defending. He was doing what he needed to do off the halfback. So yeah, I want to give him an 8. I'll give him an 8. I'm going to go with an 8. I just thought, I loved the way he stepped up defensively, and he got a couple of intercept marks, a few ones here and there that just showed that he was taking his shutdown role a lot better. He was taking to it, a lot better, and Really happy with this game. Obviously he's still got like 26 touches and really good numbers, but I just thought what he did defensively was really, really excellent and improved on his game last week in that regard. So an 8 for Josh. Really, really happy with this performance. Moving on into the midfield, we've got Steele Sidebottom. Now, my God, I mean, was that an 18-year-old on the field or what? Steele Sidebottom was just absolutely incredible that whole game. And before I even saw the stats, right before the end of the game, I just thought, I was looking at him going, this is the best game I've seen him play for us. Like, genuinely the best game I've seen him play. He started in the middle a little bit, but then obviously went back out on the wing. But just controlled, speed, worked up and down, never stopped running. And that goes for the whole team, by the way, not just him. But he just looked like he was an 18-year-old playing footy for the first time. So much energy with him. And I thought even last week he performed pretty well. He wasn't as slow as like Pendles was in a lot of ways, but just thought he was so good, man. I'll have to give him a 9.5 Sidebottom. I mean, it's very hard to go against him being my man of the match. Just in terms of what he did in the middle, 9.5 Sidebottom. Amazing game, and I really hope he builds into the season and keeps giving us performances like that. Obviously, Port were all over the place, so it allows us to dominate the field positioning more, and that's where the wingers usually get involved. But really happy with this game. Just an incredible game. Just kept thinking, wow, he must have had so much of the ball. And then I checked his stats after the game, and it's like 31 touches or something. And a goal as well. And just composure personified. So good still. 9.5 for Steele. Moving on into the key midfielders. So we've got Darcy, Cameron in the ruck. Now, unfortunately, I do think Darcy's always going to perform really well across the ground. Like, in terms of intercept marking and stuff. I thought he was really good in that area, but he really struggled in that ruck against Jordan Sweet, who's a much bigger ruckman and obviously becoming a really, really good ruckman, Jordan Sweet. But I did think Darcy kind of, in the ruck, just a little bit of the same issues as last week, just in terms of head-outs to advantage and stuff like that. I'm going to give Darcy 6.5, just under. I still think it was I would say that's an average game where, you weren't quite where you needed to be, but you did enough to justify a decent performance. So a 6.5 for Darcy Cameron. I love what he brings to us, and I just think he'll get better as the season goes on. But yeah, there's questions about how effective he is being in the ruck in terms of ruck contests. Around the ground, great performer, does everything that we want of him and more. But yeah, 6.5 for Darcy Cameron. That's about it. We'll move on. Nick Dacos. Now, old Nick, I think it took time to build into the game, definitely. But I thought he managed his running a lot better than he did in the last week game where he was just running all over the place, crazy numbers. So, thankfully, no cramps this week, but I thought he was just really, really good. And I'll give him an 8. I'm going to give Nick Dacos an 8, which to me is actually a really good sign because usually we're used to Nick Dacos just running the show, right? So this week it was a team performance, and I'm sure Nick Dacos wants to win the Brownlow, but I'm pretty sure he wants to win a premiership a lot more than that. And this was the kind of game where you saw everyone step up, everyone do their part. And so it meant that Nick Dacos didn't look like the outright best player on the field. And he wasn't. He wasn't our best player on the field. He was still brilliant. Thought his pressure acts and tackling could have been a bit better. But that's not his role. We need him to get the ball, run it forward. Scored a goal, a brilliant goal. Always going to be a great player for us. I'll give him an 8 just because it's Nick Dacos. He's always a great performer. I didn't think he was, where he's usually at in terms of performances. But again, that's also because everyone stepped up, and it makes it easier on the one person, on Nick Dacos, to not have to go over the top just to dominate the game. I'd rather the whole team looks really good than just one player on that team. And we've seen in other teams where that can be costly later in the season. So really happy with Nick. An 8 out of 10 for Nick Dacos. Love his work. Looking forward to what he brings for the rest of the year. Now, Perriman, obviously in terms of stats, he wasn't his best. But he was playing a tagging role this week, which is a surprise because we don't usually tag. But he did a great job on Jason Horne-Francis. Just thought that he brought the pressure. He was one of those players. I mean, his pressure acts was crazy numbers. Really, really high pressure acts. Tackling was superb from him as well. Just really, really happy with his overall game. And If I had to give him a rating, I'll give him a baseline 7. I thought he did what he had to do for that day. Clearly he was tagging a lot more, but his defensive pressure, his tackling and that side of the game was excellent. And yeah, he didn't get a lot of touches, but sometimes that's not what you want out of your a defensive midfielder. And he did his role quite, I wouldn't say perfection, but he did his role as expected. 7 could be bordering on a 7.5, but I'm trying to be as realistic sort of as possible with these ratings, because it was a great game. Like, it's hard to not give a player a high rating when we played a game that we played. But I'll go with a 7 for Perryman. Just did what is expected of him, and really happy to have him in that team. Next up, Ned Long. Now look, let me tell you something. When I was at that game, I just kept thinking Ned Long is having his best game in a Collingwood jumper. I'm not sure how he's performed at Hawthorn when he was there, but that was Ned Long's best game in a Collingwood jumper. Now, I had him last week to be dropped. It was close between him and Allen, but I just thought, obviously Allen can run out the game more, but no. Ned Long came in, did a job. Tackling there, possession there, his ability to handle in a tight situation, to tackle, to bring in, to just thought he had an incredible game for us. I'm going to give Long an 8 out of 10 as well. Just like Nick, I just thought he was just bringing a heat every time and did really well. There's a couple of possessions here and there where he turned them over, but he's going to learn from that, and it just looks so good. I really am happy with having him in that midfield. And I remember even last year when we started coming good towards the end of the year, he was in that team and he did a good job, but this was the game where he really just stepped it up that extra notch. And obviously with Pendle's a sub, just meant we had more legs in that middle, and it showed. It really showed. An 8 out of 10 for Ned Long. Easily his best game for us. Really happy with him, and look forward to what else he can bring. He could be a future, I want to say captain, because I think Nick will probably become a captain, but definitely like a leader. He's definitely a leader. He's got that in him, and I think he will become a leader for us in the future. But yeah, 8 out of 10 for Ned. Really happy with him. Next up, Lipinski. I'm going to give Lipinski a 7.5. I thought he did that little bit extra than just a baseline 7. But overall, just in terms of what kind of game he played his role, right? He played his role. There's a couple of moments, obviously got a real little goal as well. But thought he did what he needed to do. Could have given him a 7. Really, but I did think there was moments where I was watching and thinking he stepped up in that moment or in this moment, and he did his role really well. So 7.5 for Lipinski. Let's move on into the forward line. So first off, Jamie Elliott. Now, he had a great game. He looked like gold every time he was near the ball. Had a goal disallowed that unfortunately wasn't a great goal, but just about hit the post. I'm going to give Jamie Elliott an 8 out of 10. Just exactly what we needed from him, and above that as well. 2 goals, I think it was, for him. Just really happy with this game, and looked like he was running hard, pressuring. Everyone was doing that, but it was just so good to watch. 8 out of 10 for Jamie. Moving on, we've got Brody Mychek now. He's kicked 3 goals. Obviously a key forward for us, and that's what you really want out of a key forward. I do think other parts of his game, in terms of tackling and everything, he was a bit down on that, but overall did what he had to do. 3 goals, you can't really deny that. An 8 out of 10 for Mychek as well. Just thought he did what he needed in that midfield and delivered us 3 goals at key moments in the game as well. So really happy with him. But yeah, moving on to Membry. Wow, what a game from Membry. What a game from Tim Membry, honestly. What I loved about his game, sure, he kicked 4 goals, and in the first quarter he kicked 3 of them. But what I really loved about his game was his pressure. He brought the pressure tonight. Like last week I was saying that we had too many tools, and, Membry is more of a leading forward rather than that kind of pressure forward. This week, that was addressed. 1,000% that was talked about this week, because the pressure I saw from Tim Membry for 4 quarters, he just kept running. I remember towards the end of the game, he did a great spoil where he just ran hard and got to the contest, and just thought that was it. That was it. Whatever you brought, that was it. Bring that for the rest of the year, and my God, you're going to be up there in the Coleman, buddy. I'll tell you that much. But just thought he did exactly what we needed from him. Leading forward, exceptional in that area, but the pressure that he brought with him tonight was just so good to watch. Really, really happy with him. I'm going to go with an 8.5 for Membry. Could have given him a 9, honestly. Probably deserves a 9, but I'm going to go with an 8.5. Thought he was better than most of our other forwards. But yeah, I'll stick with an 8.5. I do think he has another level to him. Obviously, he kicked 3 goals in the first quarter and then kind of quieted down. And then got a goal over the top from Bobby Hill later on. So I do think there's, oddly enough, there's better from him that can come, especially more consistent across the 4 quarters. But my God, what a game. And the crowd got behind him as well and absolutely loved it. Like, our new recruits now are starting to show what they can bring. Perriman last week, just in general, and then this week Perriman as a midfield tagger and a defensive midfielder. Houston, incredible, and now Membry with the goals. Like, really, really happy with the recruits today after that game, and yeah, looking forward to what more they can bring. But moving on, we've got Lockie Schultz. Now, there's a lot of talks about Lockie Schultz and how good he is or how bad he is and whatever. That was his game. Yes, he only scored 1 goal, but my God, the guy had like 7 tackles. His pressure axe was like in the 20s. Just an incredible game. Exactly what we brought him in for, and he played it to perfection. Just to perfection. He'll go under the radar for this game just because he kicked 1 goal. But in the midfield, in that forward line, we got multiple goal kickers all over the place. So, but what he did was different to everyone else in that forward line, and that's why for me he gets an 8.5 because he just did his role to perfection. He's always that player that he might get 1 or 2 goals max, but what he offers in terms of pressure in that forward line, and he looks a lot better when other players are looking good as well. Like, when him and Bo, I thought we're just putting the pressure on in that forward line and making it so tough for the opposition to get that ball out. So when there's combination of that in the team, it looks a lot better. Everyone looks better for it. Lockie Schultz, 8.5 out of 10 for me. One of his best games he's played for us, aside from the Brisbane game, I would say, last year. But really, really happy with him. And I've always backed him and thought he's a good player. But after last week, he needed to show up, and he did. He absolutely did. Brought the heat in that forward line. Moving on, Dan McStay. Now, look, my man of the match is between Sidebottom and McStay. And it's really hard to put them apart. But McStay, for me, gets a 9.5. That was the best game I think I've ever seen him play, whether it's at Brisbane or Collingwood. Everything I thought he would be this year, he did that game. Everything from his pressing, he got like 5 tackles, I think it was, which is actually really incredible from a full forward. You don't expect that from a full forward. Possessions, 21. He kept winning the ball off the field and just setting us up for an attack. And the 3 goals as well on top of it. Just an incredible game. I mean, from a full forward perspective, that was Jeremy Cameron-like. In terms of getting high possessions, working up the ground. But more than Jeremy Cameron, he added pressure. He brought the heat, kept chasing, kept doing everything. Like, this whole preseason, I was thinking he's going to take that next level this year. And after last week, I was really, really disappointed. And that's why I gave him a bad score last week. But this week, he showed up. He showed what he can do. And I was so happy that he did. 9.5 for McStay. Just a brilliant game from him. Really, really happy with it. Finally, Bobby Hill. I thought Bobby kind of did his role. Stepped up in glimpses, and that's really what he does. I'll give Bobby an 8 out of 10. Great moments from him, obviously. Always one of our better performers in that team. I do think he was more on par with Elliott than he was with a Schultz or a Membry. Did score 2 goals, but across the whole game, I'll give him an 8 out of 10. Really, really good performance from him as well. Finally, let's get right into the bench. Jack Cripps, I thought he had a much better game this week. Definitely a much better game. I do think his entries inside 50s can be a bit lacking. Not always the best in that area, but just a hard worker. Again, pressure axe tackling was all there. Loved his game. 8 out of 10 for Jack. Next up, Reef. Now, Reef, look, I thought he had a decent game. I really do. I'm going to give Reef a 6.5. I'm not going to get into it too much, but basically just thought that having Howe and Moore step up allowed him to have an easier game. I don't think, he didn't get one contested mark or anything like that where, it was a crucial contest and he needed to win it. He did his role well as a one-on-one defender. I wouldn't say he did, I wouldn't say it's a 7, just why? Because I do think he underperformed in just a tiny bit in key areas, but 6.5, much better game from him than last week, and a lot of pressure on him last week as well. And we'll see him ease into the role, hopefully, and we'll see how we go for the rest of the year. But yeah, 6.5 for Reef McInnes. Next up, Bo. I thought Bo was really, really good. Obviously, no goals for him, but just did his role to perfection again. Like Schultz, I do think Schultz was better. But Bo will get a 7.5 from me. I just thought he did exactly what we needed to do. Probably an underrated game, just in terms of what he offered, pressing-wise and pressure-wise and everything. But 7.5. Next up, Sullivan. I'll give Sullivan a 6.5. I think he did well, reasonably well. Just being brought into the team. Offered more pace for us and even tackling pressure as well, but not too much tackling or anything like that from him. But just did what he was supposed to do. Got a goal as well. 6.5 for Sullivan. Last up is the sub, and that's Pendles. I'll give Pendles a 6.5. I thought he was actually pretty decent when he came on. His pressure axe was like, I think, 22 or just a big number, like a 14, like a big number that you wouldn't expect from a player that's a sub. So did his pressure axe, got 8 touches. Could have had a goal, but unfortunately didn't get it. But yeah, 6.5 for Pendles. And that is it for the player ratings. Alright, that is it for the game review and player ratings for our round 1 game against Port Adelaide. Really, really happy overall. A lot of great performances, a lot of things to look forward to, and hopefully we just keep the levels up for the rest of the year. We've got a big game against the Dogs next week. Will be a tough game, no doubt. They've got a lot of injuries out, but they're still always a tough team to come up against. Big game as well at the MCG. Pendles and Sidebottom will break the record. This week they tied the record. Next week they'll break the record for most games played together. So incredible stuff. Just really, really happy with this week. Craig McRae, I mean, just what a coach. He did exactly what we needed. He changed what we needed. They got to work and the boys showed up and gave us a hell of a performance. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Side by side forever. Take care. Goodbye.
Side by side is a core value of our club, and our fans are a massive part of that.